So today's video is about penis size, the problem with penis size, the great subject, and especially about the stigma that people with smaller penises have to live. Um, this all started out, I mean, of course, an age-old subject. Uh, why am I bringing this up? It's because I found on Twitter a group of university students that were making a game that said post a picture of a character you know that has a small penis. And they started by posting a picture of Lord Farquaad, the evil guy from the first movie from Shrek. And then they started posting other cartoon characters. Then they started posting like human characters. Then politicians they didn't like. Then artists that they didn't like. First off, my first impression was, oh, this is really bad when they start using real people. But then I thought, no, even when it comes to Lord Farquaad, the message that comes across is based on hatred. I mean, they're using penis size as an insult. He who has a small penis deserves to be mocked. He who has a larger penis is worshipped and he can brag about it. A person with a small penis is ashamed. You should feel sorry about him. So where does this stigma come from? So I decided to first do something I hope you don't find too boring, but I'm a huge history geek. So I like to go through that first. So I wanted to start with the erotic papyrus of Turin from ancient Egypt, where they show images trying to mock human males because they were trying to seduce goddesses. So it's all like a huge joke, like saying, "Look at this very stupid humans trying to have sex with these very superior beings as the goddesses." No, and as a mockery, they draw their penises in extremely big. So we can see that at least back then, having a big penis was a reason to be mocked, opposite as what we're living today. We can see that a larger penis is far from being the ideal since it's being used as a way to humiliate someone. So if you have a big penis, you can be laughed at. And another thing we get out of this papyri and out of other drawings and texts and stuff like that is that Egyptians did have a preference for circumcised penises, which is a total random fact, but there you have it. When we go back to ancient Greece, it goes a little deeper. We know that sex drive was much more linked to an animal impulse. That's what people used to think. So humans, even though we're animals, we should like stand out among all the other animals by being more focused on virtue. And science and philosophy and all that is what made someone virtuous. So the smaller the penis, the bigger the indicator that you were actually virtuous. If you had a big penis, then therefore you are not virtuous and you're closer to the animal side. It was an indicator that your sex drive could take over more easily, which makes absolutely no sense, but it's the mentality or how it worked back then. It goes so far as to include some myths. One of my favorite myths on Greek mythology includes my favorite goddess, which is Hestia, goddess of home, hearth, and the sacred fire. And she made a vote of perpetual virginity. And she also happens to be Zeus's older sister. Um, what happens is, well, there was a human wedding, all the gods were invited, they were having a blast, drinking a lot. Hestia went crazy on alcohol and was drunk and fell asleep under a tree. And there was this god Priapus, uh, son of Aphrodite and someone, I don't remember who the father was. And he had the amazing idea of trying to take advantage of Hestia. Now that she was drunk and asleep, he tried to rape her. As he was approaching her and starting to touch her, a donkey, I don't know, barked. I don't know what donkeys do. I don't know. It did the donkey sound, and Estia woke up, found Priapus on top of her, and of course, his Zeus is powerful. Can you imagine how powerful his elder sister can be? So Estia used all her power to punish him. and the worst punishment she could think about was making Priapus have an enormously large penis perpetually erected, so that everybody would make fun of him. It was so humiliating that afterwards, Priapus was so mad and feeling so bad about himself that he decided to punish the donkey in the same way, and he gave all donkeys enormous penises. That's why donkeys have huge penises. Apparently, Greeks have an explanation for everything. But we can see how negative the impact of having a large penis had in that society. You know how that society and that culture rejected big penises in such a way they represented it in their own religious traditions. And also, as another fun fact, Priapus is the one that gives the name to priapism, which is when somebody has an erection for longer than 4 hours, and that's very, very dangerous. They have to drain the blood from your penis with needles, otherwise you could be left perpetually impotent, lose sensation, and a bunch of other huge problems involving sexual arousal. So yeah, that's where the word priapism comes from the god Priapus, who was perpetually erected. If we go back now to India, we can find the book Kama Sutra, and it identifies 3 sizes of penises: the hare, the bull, and the horse. The hare is like the smaller size, the bull is the middle size, and the horse is like the biggest one. They never make any reference regarding which size is better than another, but they are very careful to explain that vulvas also have different categories, and what they think about mostly is about aesthetics. So they believe a hare should be with a very small vulva, a bull should be partnered with a middle-sized vulva, and a horse should be paired with what in Kama Sutra is called an elephant vulva. So we can only imagine how it worked. It's never said that a hare penis is worse or something than a horse penis. What was bad was to have like different sizes mixing up, because it wasn't aesthetic, it wasn't harmonic, so that's what was criticized. But again, in no way is the penis size compared as either better or worse, depending on if you were a horse or a hare, which I find quite interesting, and is probably one of my favorite historic mentions of penis sizes. When we go to Japan, we can see erotic art called shunga, which represents a huge exaggerated size of genitalia in general. Both penises and vulvas are huge, disproportionate, like really fat, and they are like really detailed in showing veins and the very wrinky foreskin. And they were very specific about trying to draw as much pubic hair as they could. Anyway, since we know this erotic art was made for the elite, the only ones who could have access to it, we don't know if the genitalia is represented that big because it was what was desired, or because it was a way for people to notice easier what they were actually watching. So drawing everything so huge and big would probably be more of like a visual impact to make it easier to understand you're seeing genitals and you're seeing sex, other than probably this is the way we want to look, because the exaggeration is so radical that it's probably not humanly possible to achieve that. So we cannot take that as an indication that larger or smaller genitalia were either good or bad. We only have that art and all the theory surrounding it. So let's flash forward to the 15th century with Henry VIII from England. You know, the king that, how was it? Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived, the one who married 6 times. He made fashionable to wear genital protectors, which were actually used in battle to protect the penis and testicles from impact. And he started wearing them on day-to-day clothing. And he also sent in to be made bigger than they usually wear. And that made him look as if he had a perpetual erection while he was walking around the court all the time. Of course, we know about Henry VIII's history, and he had a real issue with masculinity because he thought he was perceived as less of a man because he wasn't capable of producing a male heir. So apparently walking around with a pretending to have an erection was kind of his way of handling that issue instead of going to a psychologist, would maybe would have been way better, both for him and for Catherine of Aragon. Thing is that, of course, since the king started doing that, all the men in the court started doing that, and everybody had to pretend that walking around with an erection was totally normal and appealing also. So was it fashionable? Yes, at some point it was. But remember, after Henry, his son Edward ruled for a very short time. Then, Lady Jane Grey was the 9-day queen. Then came Mary the First, who ruled also for a short while, and then Elizabeth the First, who had a very long reign, and her reign was based upon the idea of her maidenhead. So she was a perpetual virgin as well. So there was a quick switch where every man in the court that was walking around pretending to have a huge erection was actually looked down upon. So they went out of fashion quite quickly during the reign of Elizabeth I. Now it was seen as a large penis, or trying to pretend to have a large penis was considered vulgar. It was actually mocked too. So it came out of fashion. But we can see that already we have like these ideas of larger penises or pretending to have an erection. Now it's more linked with masculinity in the 15th century compared to what we had seen in the years earlier. Now there's a very, very recent study that I couldn't download illegally. Not that I ever do that, of course. It's from October 2022, so just now. And it's about researching all the artistic representations from the 15th century to the 21st century, and focusing especially on how the penises have been growing progressively century through century, which shows that actually the ideal male aesthetic has been adapting since the 15th century till now to have a bigger and bigger penis, because it's been almost always been represented bigger and bigger in the ideal male art representation. So we can see that it's been going on. Still, I cannot put my finger on the historical moments where we switched from small penises are really good and are what appealing, and big penises are like shameful, to the part where the bigger the better, which is what we're living now, right? And it all started in the 15th century, and we are still thinking that way, which is really backwards, right? So, what is the reality? And this is where I'm going to delve into a little bit into sexuality, into the sexological part that explains how our genitals are formed, which is one of my favorite subjects. So, before the fourth week of development, where we are still in our mother's uteruses, both female and male or intersex babies, we all share the same thing, which is urogenital sinus, which is like something that looks quite closely to a vulva, right? But it depends on what happens with the chromosomes, whether it develops into a vulva with a very sensitive clitoris and with sensitive labia, or if there's testosterone, and more specifically dihydrotestosterone involved, how it turns into a penis with a scrotum, and well, the base of the penis and all that develops from exactly the same part. It's all the origin is the urogenital sinus. So, as you may know, clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings, which makes it quite sensible, while the penis has only 4,000. It's like 50% of sensation gets lost, apparently, during this transition made possible by dihydrotestosterone, which makes this structure that's really close to a vulva develop into a penis, which of course is a very traumatic process, and we lose a lot of sensations. Still, we do have nerve endings. So in no way does a small penis have less sensation than a larger one. Actually, if we think about this process as trauma, and since trauma helps to break down or lose 50% of nerve endings, I could assume, and don't take me for granted because this is my theory, which I haven't studied deeply, but if the development of the penis ends up causing 50% of sensible loss, I would also assume that the larger that mutation is, the larger the loss is. So probably a smaller dick is more sensitive than a larger one. Again, that's my theory, and I haven't really gone deeper into it. So if you want to repeat it, you can always say that's Nero's invention. Maybe he's lying. So don't take it for granted. I just wanted to throw it in there because I think that might be a point for people with small penises. And when it comes to functionality, it's exactly the same. Both larger and smaller penises have erections. When it comes to ejaculation, it's the same. There's absolutely no link between penis size and the amount of semen you ejaculate, or how far you can ejaculate. That makes absolutely no sense. There's a lot of fantasies in porn claiming that a larger dick shoots a larger load and shoots it further away, but it makes absolutely no sense. A very small penis can produce a lot of cum and could shoot really, really far. It doesn't depend on the size of it. So when it comes to terms of functionality, it's exactly the same. It's as sensitive, the same ability to have erections, the same ability to shoot a load and be fertile, right? When it comes to sex with people with vulvas, you have to understand something. All the sensitive parts in a vulva are located in the outer genitalia, meaning the labia, the clitoris, and only the lower third of the vagina. The two internal thirds of the vagina have no nerve endings. It's not like they have less nerve endings, it's that they don't have nerve endings. So it is not necessary to have like a 20 centimeter penis to simulate it, because if we think that the vagina has like around 15 centimeters depth, you have only like 5 centimeters of sensitive tissue. So meaning that a micro penis is considered a penis that doesn't reach 7 centimeters when erect. You don't even need 7 centimeters to correctly stimulate uh, the sensitive part of the vagina. And still, when we're focusing on people with vulvas and we're focusing on pleasure through vaginal penetration, we have to remember that penetration brings orgasms only to around 20% of people with vulvas. So we should focus more on outer stimulation than on inner penetration. So that's a tip. So when it comes to having sex with a partner with a vulva, penis size is irrelevant. Probably could be even more troublesome because a vulva needs to dilate, needs to lubricate and stuff like that. If it's a very large penis, it's probably going to take a while or longer, or could even be like painful sex, which I assume is something nobody wants, right? I don't know, I sometimes want it, but in that case, a smaller penis could always be way easier to deal with and still be a pleasurable experience. When it comes to anal sex, dilating the anus is fun and it's very and it feels really good, and you can do that with your fingers, or you can do that with a very large penis, or you can do it with a very small penis as well. The result is going to be the same. We have nerve endings in the anus, and dilating it is really, really good. Feels amazing. Again, same as with the vulva. The larger the instrument you use to dilate, the more time it's going to take, and the more lube it's going to take, and the higher the risk of having painful intercourse, which is, in my opinion, another point for smaller penises. Much of the information I have given now is like information everybody already has and already handles. So why do we still prefer bigger dicks when we think about it, or when it comes to collective imagination, we'll come to the conclusion that most of the people are going to enjoy a larger penis, or it's going to be more appealing. Why have we reached that point? We're growing up in a society where we hear, ever since we're little children, that having a small penis is a problem and a bigger one is like the ideal. We keep that discourse installed, and it also starts affecting our own preferences, to the point where we're always going to verbalize a preferences, which actually has absolutely no sense, right? Just for repeating the same thing. Just for example, if one person in a group of males would say like, hey, you know what, I don't think penis size is important, what is going to happen? Everybody's going to mock him as if he had a small penis, and that's why he's saying that. So what we all tend to do, because we don't want to look less masculine in this whole alpha male competition macho thing, which is also quite ridiculous, but unfortunately is something that's still going on today. We'll pretend that we don't care about the penis size subject because we all have gigantic dicks, right? So that's what society has done to us. To avoid humiliation, to be a part of the group, and to be accepted as one of the alphas and be part of the group, you have to pretend to have a large penis. And when that is projected, most people are going to repeat the same thing. So we're probably just repeating a discourse we haven't even thought about ourselves, or we haven't even taken our own preferences around it. We just assume we have to like the same thing everybody else likes, otherwise we're going to face rejection. Um, of course, there are people who actually like bigger penises for a number of reasons, but we cannot undermine the fact that the largest and most important sex organ is the brain. So, if we have been socially instructed to believe and to repeat and even to believe ourselves that a larger penis is better and more pleasurable and all that crap, if our brain believes it, and when you encounter that situation, your brain is going to assume that it's a positive thing, and your brain is going to assume that it's very erotic, very exciting, very arousing for that, and the experience is going to be arousing because your brain is going to make it arousing. Even though you can experience a lot of pain, you may be nervous because of dilation or not enough lubrication, etc. Your brain is going to make that situation be fun. And being that your brain is the most important sex organ, that experience or those experiences are also valid. Still, we cannot break the link between my brain has been taught something that's not true and it's making me believe the same, and it's making me enjoy a situation that I would probably not enjoy otherwise. I'm not sure if I'm being clear about this subject, but I think it's really interesting to think about. Of course, a lot of people here are going to jump and say, no, 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 you know what? I am actually really, really happy with larger penises, and that's what I always wanted, and I'm always enjoying that, etc. Of course, totally. And as I said, it's a valid point. But I want to invite you to actually think about it and try to realize if it's really our own speech and we're not repeating someone else's speech that has installed it in our brains for us. If we're not repeating this out of social cultural fears and stuff like that. This social cultural pressure is actually so relevant that we have the small penis syndrome, which is an absurdity now if you think about it. It's people who have this huge problem about their own penis size. They tend to look at themselves in the mirror and panic and be very uncomfortable with the idea of a small penis and everything. They believe it's dysmorphophobia, like a very, very strong thing, very strong problem. And the funny thing about small penis syndrome is that it affects mostly people who have an average to higher than average penis size. They don't actually have small penises, but the trauma of the society has installed it, and their reaction has been so profound, or so much fear of rejection towards it, that they look at their bodies and they don't see the reality. Actually, there was a study done by a penis surgery center, and they studied 67 patients that allegedly needed a surgical intervention to make their penises bigger. The ages from these people reach from 16 to 65 years. None of the participants have a penis that was less than average. None of them. But when asked about what they thought the ideal penis size was, they said it was 17 centimeters. As we know, the average is 14. It's very interesting to see that this fake ideas and this fake need of having larger genitalia for absolutely nothing, because as we have seen, pleasure is a fact that does not depend on size at all. So this idea of needing a larger penis is social and only social, and it has reached generation through generation. I mean, children from 16 years to elderly of 65 believe the same thing and are submitting themselves to surgical interventions because of this fear, because of absolutely nothing. But that's a point I wanted to show about how strong this social cultural idea of larger penises are better and smaller penises are shame, um, how deep it's installed into our brains and how much damage it's done. These, of course, are the most tangible damages. We can see people trying to subject their bodies to a traumatic process only to fit into a mold that's absurd. So we can use that to kind of understand how it has affected all of our other brains, all of the other people who take part in this same society. um, Maybe we don't have small penis syndrome, but we are actually affected and we are part of the system that thinks that larger penises are better. And it's already installed in our brains unless we question it, unless we start thinking about it, unless we start thinking about our very own ideas about penis size. If it's relevant, if it's not, if we really like bigger, if we really like very small ones, if you like average, or if you like whatever, or if you are not into penetration either. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we haven't questioned because we tend to just repeat what society thinks it's okay, what they have taught us. And we repeat a discourse because we think it's safe, because we're still going to be part of the group. And if we don't, we risk being rejected. And that's what no one wants, right? We are social animals, so we need acceptance in that way. Well, I live in Madrid, and there's this metro station that's called Chueca. That's like the gay side of town. And as you climb up the stairs to reach the streets, there's a huge sign about surgery for making your penis bigger, right? And I've always wondered, if making your penis bigger is like a very common thing, or it's an acceptable a society, something that society accepts, so that you could have a huge sign of it right outside of the metro where children and elderly, everybody can see it from everywhere. I mean, it's Madrid, so people from all over the world can see this. What would happen if I approach that place and asked to get a penis reduction? I would really love to think that they would agree and take it as naturally as they would a penis enhancement surgery. But I really doubt it happens. Because making your penis smaller might even be seen as a pathological thing. If you have seen my video on voluntary penectomy, you may understand uh, all about the stigma about our mindsets on penises and the ideal one, and what male characteristics are and how important the penis is for our society. Um, so when it comes to making it bigger, you can advertise it and put it in a place where little children can see it and nothing happens. But if you talk about penectomy, I mean the removal of a penis, then you don't even have a space on social media. You shouldn't talk about it, or you shouldn't even try to do it because you're sick. You know, there's this total double standard, right? Making it bigger, perfect. Making it smaller, you're weird. Removing it, you're sick. You should go like see a therapist or something, um, which is an awful double standard, right? If we are allowing people to subject themselves to surgery to feel better with their bodies, like, hey, you feel bad about yourself because you want to have a larger penis, okay, come here, we're going to have a surgery, and there's a huge sign here, the whole society can see it, nothing happens, no complaints. But it's like, hey, you know what, I really have this genital dysmorphophobia, I really want to look at myself in the mirror and feel myself and feel good, but I don't want to have a penis. And it's like, oh, no, 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 you know what, you can't even talk about this in public. You're not allowed on forums. Nobody should see you, you know? You're totally insane. You're sick. Go treat yourself. Never mind advertising something like that. Our society's double standards are so hard that I bet you could even go to jail for advertising penectomy or something like that. So my final comment would be that penis size is still a debatable subject nowadays, which I really think shouldn't. And all the stigma against small penises is quite toxic, especially for people who live with one, which are the ones that are directly affected by it. Those are the ones who are actually going to face some sort of rejection, or having to go through life hearing all the people talk about how bad or how shameful or how inappropriate or how much worse lovers they are than the rest and stuff like that, which of course, is a total mess for self-esteem, and especially when all those arguments are totally fake and have absolutely no scientific basis. I mean, they are actually going against what science has shown already. It's like a very backwards way to think. And also, the second people most affected by it are all the rest of us, because we have been raised with this idea, again, based on falseness, based on lies, based on disinformation, and we have been growing up and believing and thinking that way. And of course, if we start like cutting off all the people who don't fit in this ideal penis size model, and we can see that on social media, especially I think on Grindr, the gay dating app, where you can see so many people posting only XXL, only large penises, and all that, that it unfortunately shows that it's made our sexuality way poorer. We are losing all those special tastes of diversity, which makes us much more rich in that aspect, being more able to enjoy different things in our lives and our sexualities. We only have one life, and unfortunately, we are wasting it away based on prejudice that's been installed and we haven't questioned, because we have so much prejudice installed in our brain that just focusing on one of them might be just a very crazy thing to do. There's just one of the many, and unfortunately, it does affect us. And it does affect, of course, the people who are directly linked to it, in the same way that the brain might project eroticism towards very big penises, even though we may not enjoy it or not feel so comfortable about it. The opposite happens as well. If we see a small penis, our brain is going to jump into, this isn't ideal. This isn't what we need. This is totally against what we've been taught. This is against what our friends like. This is against people brag about. This is something people mock. So I'm not going to be able to enjoy it. And we waste away those chances. And of course, we may not even notice that we're rejecting something based out of prejudice. But those who do notice it are the ones that are getting rejected, you know? So with this video, what I want to think is invite everyone to think it over. All right, we may be comfortable into thinking, hey, you know what, I've heard all about this, but I actually like bigger dicks. It's like, let's give it a second thought. Are we really sure we wouldn't be able to enjoy it with a smaller one? What's going on with our heads about it? And I think it will really be helpful for ourselves to be more open, to enjoy more, to be better sexual lovers, because we can actually to adapt and to enjoy different bodies from different people, and not only ones that fit into a specific mold. And of course, the most important point here is to help destigmatize something that's absolutely absurd and that is actually hurting lives of real people who have to listen to all this crap constantly and who have to jump into Twitter and see that their penis size is actually a way to insult other people, that their bodies are so wrong that other people can use them as an insult to corrupt politicians, to crazy people in the music industry, to the evil characters in cartoons and in children's stories. And I think we should stop that. And I think we have all the capabilities to make this a better world for them as well. So that's today's chapter. I know I've talked a lot about some very difficult subjects, and again, between my accent, my pronunciation, and the fact that I'm not sure if I really ordered all the ideas the right way, I really hope I got the message through. And let me know what you think in the comments. And I'm really starting to like the interaction in the comment sections in the other videos, so just keep it coming. And if you have any suggestions, I'm really open to it. I'm going to leave here in my Instagram and my email address just in case you want to contact me. And well, being that it's already Friday, even though it's just the 00 and 00 hours, have a nice weekend. Bye.